Mildred the mole lives in fluffy gardens. Mildred lives here, at Underdome Place, to be precise. Moles usually build their houses underground because they love to dig. Mildred's house, however, peeks out from the ground because Mildred loves to know what is going on. She peeks out her window to watch Mr. Johnson the panda water his flowers. She peeks at the little penguin postman as he delivers his letters. She even peeks at Lola the mosquito doing some very silly things. Mildred peeks at everyone, everywhere. You could say that she is a very curious mole. You could even say that she's a very nosy mole. And you would be right. Our story begins very early one quiet morning. Mildred went for a little walk to see if anyone was doing anything interesting. Even early in the morning, Mildred was a very nosy mole. Walking happily along the path were Fudge and Lily the kittens, carrying a bright yellow ribbon. "Oh!" exclaimed Mildred excitedly. "I wonder what Fudge and Lily are up to." Mildred ran up to get a better look, but Fudge and Lily saw her looking. "Oh, you are a very nosy mole," said Fudge and Lily, and then they ran away laughing. "Oh!" she exclaimed again. "A bright yellow ribbon. I wonder what they need that for." Mildred was so very curious. She had to find out more. She ran after Fudge and Lily and had almost caught up just as Wee Reg let them into his house. Mildred ran around the back of Wee Reg's house and peeked through the fence into his garden, trying to see what they were all doing. In the garden, Fudge and Lily helped Wee Reg drag a big red bucket out of his little shed. "Oh!" exclaimed Mildred. "A bright yellow ribbon, a big red bucket. What are they going to do with those?" That's when Wee Reg saw her looking. "Oh, you are a very nosy mole," said Wee Reg, and he ran inside with the bucket and shut the door. When Mildred ran back to the front of the house so she could peek in the window, she saw one other person in Wee Reg's house that day. It was Mr. Johnson, and he had a large bunch of purple flowers. "Oh!" she exclaimed again. "A bright yellow ribbon, a big red bucket, and now purple flowers. What are they up to? Is this some sort of naughty trick?" Mildred was so very curious. She desperately wanted to know what everybody was doing. And then there was a sneeze. "That sounds interesting," said Mildred, and ran to see who had sneezed. It was Mavis the pony. She had been out for a walk and had gone past some flowers, and flowers make Mavis sneeze. And then Mildred remembered that Mr. Johnson had purple flowers. Suddenly, Mildred became more than a little excited. "Oh dear, she cried. Mavis looked at Mildred, puzzled. She had no idea what was wrong. "Fudge and Lily are about to play a very naughty trick on you," said Mildred to Mavis. "Really?" said Mavis. "Oh yes, I saw it all," said Mildred, "and Wee Reg and Mr. Johnson are helping them." Mavis thought about this. It doesn't sound like something Wee Reg and Mr. Johnson would do, does it? "Oh, yes," said Mildred. "They're going to use purple flowers to maybe make you sneeze." "Really?" said Mavis. "Oh, yes," said Mildred. "And they're going to tie you up with yellow ribbon." And they are even going to stick your big head in a big red bucket. Mavis didn't like the sound of that at all. She began to get a little upset. Then she began to get very upset. "How could they do such a thing to me?" she cried. At that moment, Wee Reg came out of his house with Mr. Johnson and Fudge and Lily. The purple flowers were in the red bucket, and the kittens had tied the lovely yellow ribbon around it. "Thank you for these beautiful purple flowers," he said to Mr. Johnson. "And thank you for giving me the yellow ribbon to make them look so pretty," he said to Fudge and Lily. Then Wee Reg placed the bucket of flowers outside his house. Mildred suddenly realized that she had got everything very wrong. They weren't trying to play a naughty trick on Mavis at all. The flowers were a present for Wee Reg to brighten up the front of his little house. It had nothing to do with Mavis, and it certainly had nothing to do with Mildred. Mildred had just been very nosy. Mildred was sorry that she had made Mavis cry, and promised to try not to be so nosy in future. Then Mildred called on Wee Reg and Mr. Johnson and Fudge and Lily, and said sorry to every one of them for being so nosy. While having a little peek inside, of course.